Translation, O Supreme Lord, for self-realization I surrender unto you, who are worshipped by the demigods as the supreme controller of everything. By your instructions, exposing life's purpose, kindly cut the knot from the core of my heart and let me know the destination of my life. Purport. Sometimes it is argued that people do not know who is a spiritual master, and that finding a spiritual master from whom to get enlightenment in regard to the destination of life is very difficult. To answer all these questions, King Satyavrata shows us the way to accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the real spiritual master. The Supreme Lord is given full directions in the Bhagavad Gita about how to deal with everything in this material world and how to return home back to Godhead. Therefore, one should not be misled by so-called gurus who are rascals and fools. Rather, one should directly see the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the guru or instructor. It is difficult, however, to understand Bhagavad Gita without the help of the guru. Therefore, the guru appears in the parampara system. In Bhagavad Gita 4.34, the Supreme Personality of Godhead recommends Tadvidi pranipatena pariprasnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshana. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. Lord Krishna directly instructed Arjuna. Arjuna is therefore Tattvadarshi, or Guru. Arjuna accepted the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. Similarly, following in the footsteps of Sri Arjuna, who is a personal devotee of the Lord, one should accept the supremacy of Lord Krishna as supported by Vyas, Devala, Asita, Narada, and later by the Acharyas Ramanujacharya, Madhavacharya Nimbarka, and Vishnu Swami, and still later by the greatest Acharya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Where then is the difficulty in finding a guru? If one is sincere, he can find a guru and learn everything. One should take lessons from the guru and find out the goal of life. Maharaj Satyavrata therefore shows us the way of the Mahajan. Mahajano yena gata sapanta. One should surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Das Avatara, and learn from him about the spiritual world and the goal of life. Om Ganata Manandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshin Militamina Tasma Shigurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vistam Stapitamina Bhutale Swayama Bhutadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Somehow or other I got on somebody's mailing list, and I'm getting emails from one of these so-called gurus. And it's, in one sense, entertaining, and in another sense, it's quite sad, because what they're presenting is so different from what the bona fide guru, Srila Prabhupada, is teaching us. So, there are many people who will present themselves as a spiritual leader. And how then should one discriminate between who to follow and who not to follow? This is very difficult. For one who is in ignorance, or naive, or foolish, very difficult to understand who is the bona fide guru. Therefore, there's a paradox. In order to understand who is a bona fide guru, one has to understand something about spiritual life to be able to discriminate who is a guru. But actually this is not so difficult because it is arranged by the Lord in the heart. So the saying is there that when one is ready, the guru appears. And so according to the purity of the heart, according to the purity of our own desire, we will get an appropriate guru. This world is called the world of the cheaters and the cheated. And there are many people who want to be cheated in the name of spiritual life. And therefore the arrangement is made for many cheating gurus to appear, to take advantage of the situation. And in this way, both the cheaters and the cheated are satisfied. However, for the sincere soul, again, Krishna is in the heart, and he understands the mind and the desire of those living entities. And we can understand, actually we have many, many examples of this. In Back to Godhead magazine, they were running for a long time, maybe they still are, about how devotees, how I came to Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. Everybody's looking at you, so I'll just wait. We have it in Back to Godhead magazine, the stories, how I came to Krishna consciousness. And we hear there so many wonderful stories about devotees, how they were looking for the truth, and how by Krishna's arrangement, somehow or other, they came in contact with the bona fide spiritual master. And generally how? By receiving one of Srila Prabhupada's books, or by coming in contact with a devotee. One way or another, Krishna arranges for the devotees, for those who are sincere, actually to find the bona fide guru. So, what's required, therefore, to find the bona fide guru is simply purity of heart. We have to purify our desire and see, what do we actually want? Do we want to actually know God? Do we want to understand who am I? What is the purpose of life? Do we actually want self-realization, or do we want ourselves to be fooled? Do we want something else? Do we want to use our so-called spiritual path as a means of sense gratification? And many people are doing this because it's easier to find followers. I read not long ago about one fellow, he decided to make an experiment to go into the guru business. So he grew out his hair and his beard and cut the profile, put on some different clothes, and went out to, I think, Sedona, Arizona. Sedona, Arizona, you may know. It's a place in America where there's these so-called vortexes, whatever they are. I'm not sure what they are. Energy, places of energy, some special energy. And there's something like 4 million tourists a year go to Sedona, and 60% of those people are looking to have a spiritual experience. So it's easy then for someone who wants to go in the guru business to go to Sedona, advertise himself, and find followers. So this fellow he wasn't actually, like I said, he was kind of doing an experiment to see. And so after a while he quit the guru business. He really wasn't teaching anything of significance as far as I understand. And but his followers became very, very angry at him. Of course, we have some experience like this with our spiritual leaders fall down or go away. It's very disturbing for the disciple. But in any case, the point is that any charlatan can present themselves as a spiritual leader because the people, unfortunately, are so deep in spiritual ignorance, they don't know who is guru, who is not guru, or how to discriminate. But this is being changed, fortunately, by the efforts of the Hare Krishna movement. This transcendental absolute truth is being distributed all over the world so that everybody can take advantage of understanding from the bona fide spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. And people are becoming more and more interested. When I joined the movement in 72, 73, nobody at that time was saying you are not the body. Nobody. Prabhupada was the only one who so very clearly said, you are not the body, you are a spiritual being. Then around the year 2000, I read a Gallup poll, or a poll by some pollster, and they reported that some 60% of the people of America at that time had accepted that they were not the body, that they were something, they were some spiritual being. What that would be, perhaps they may not have understood very clearly, but they accepted the fact that they were not the body. So this is a tremendous progress in just 30, 40 short years. For 60%, we're talking about several hundred million people, to come to the understanding we are not the body. And so, this is by the grace, of course, of Srila Prabhupada and Jagat Guru, and by the grace of all the devotees of this Hare Krishna movement who make it their life purpose to spread this transcendental knowledge in service to Guru. Now this purport, Prabhupada is making the case that one should actually take instruction from the Krishna, that Krishna should become Guru, the Lord in the heart. And this is actually what we want to achieve. Because the conditioned soul cannot hear the Lord in the heart because of our conditioning by material energy. We cannot hear the Lord in the heart, and therefore the Lord appears externally as the spiritual master. So Guru is considered the external manifestation of Supersoul. The Guru, the bona fide Guru, Prabhupada explains, is one who is in direct contact with the Supersoul. And therefore he acts as the via medium, the transparent medium, to transmit the message from the Supersoul to the disciple. In this way, one receives indirectly the instruction of the Supreme Lord. And this is the method as long as we remain in the neophyte stage, but we are meant to come to the stage where we can begin to hear the Lord in the heart directly. And this is accomplished by, let's say, what do we have to accomplish to do that? Somebody can say? Purity of the heart. Yeah. Huh? Okay. This is, Krishna explains this in Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter. There's a hint. By bringing the mind under control, the supersoul is already reached. So, there it's explained, by bringing the mind under control, one becomes free from duality. Happiness, distress, hot, cold, honor, and dishonor, they're all the same. One is free from duality at that point. So this should actually be the first goal of the neophyte devotee, of the yogi. This is basic training for all yogis, to actually conquer over the mind, to bring the mind under control. And we have a process for doing that. And what's that called? More specifically? Huh? No, more specifically? Japa, yes. Yeah, japa. Japa is our meditation. Meditation for the purpose of what? Controlling the mind. Meditation means to fix the mind on one thing, not to let the mind wander around. And of course, for so many lifetimes, the mind is unbridled, uncontrolled, and so we can't even distinguish between ourselves and our mind. For most people, for all conditioned souls, they think they are the mind, or whatever, my mind, right? And so whatever's going around in the consciousness, this is my desire, right? I have a desire. I want this. I want that. The conditioned soul cannot see any distinction even between his body or his mind and himself. And therefore he's dragged around by his senses and mind. And the Bhagavatam explains, both in the 5th canto, in the instructions of Jad Bharat to Maharaj Rahugana, and in the Uddhava Gita, both of those places there is a very lengthy explanation of how the mind is what's causing us repeated birth and death. And therefore, the devotee his endeavor is to bring the mind under control so that he can stop that, so that he can stop being led around by the mind and by the senses. So the process for doing that is meditation on the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. By that meditation, this meditation means to fix the mind on the sound of Krishna's name. And by that process, the mind becomes purified. Krishna, he is pavitram, he is completely pure. And the mind, the conditioned mind, when hearing that sound of Krishna's name, becomes purified. So then the purified mind, he can change his nature. There in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that for one whose mind is not controlled, it's his worst enemy. But for one whose mind is controlled, it becomes his best friend. So the nature of the mind changes. As the mind comes under control, instead of being this rascal who's dragging me to hell and to future births, he becomes my friend and actually helps me to become Krishna conscious. So this is very, very important. We want to do that. We want to be able to bring the mind under control, to be able to hear the mind and to discriminate. So there are several different voices in the intelligence, and we have to be able to discriminate between them. How many voices in the consciousness we can hear? How many voices? There's the intelligence and the mind. Bhagavatam says that these two are so subtle and so similar in their nature that one can only distinguish between them by their function. And then there's the voice of the supersoul and the voice of the soul. So there's the consciousness is the speaker. The question is, who has the microphone? Who's speaking? Is it my mind speaking? My worst enemy speaking? If it's my worst enemy, then I should ignore him, right? Or is it my intelligence speaking? And is it a purified intelligence or not? We also have to purify the intelligence. By the process of sadhana bhakti, we purify the intelligence by hearing Shastra. Then we purify the mind by associating with Krishna in japa meditation. When these two become purified, now we can begin to distinguish between them. We can begin to see ourselves even as separate from both of them, like a third party, which we actually are. And then we can become conscious of our consciousness. What's going on up here? Who's talking? Who's got the microphone? Who's speaking? And what are they saying? So the function, we have to understand then the function of the mind and the intelligence. Function of the mind, of course, is to discriminate on the basis of sense gratification. If it feels good, do it. Right? The old saying. That's the mind speaking. Whatever's sense gratification is nice, I accept. Whatever is not nice, I reject. The function of the intelligence is to accept and reject on the basis of one's perceived long-term interest. What's my interest in the long run? So parents are telling their children, stay in school, get an education, because the parents understand that in time that will serve you better. So even though it's an austerity now, you should do it. So this is the intelligence speaking. And then what's the voice of the supersoul? What's the supersoul saying? How can we distinguish? Well, the supersoul is our best friend, and he can say anything, right? So many things the supersoul might say. Take your umbrella today. It's going to rain. Is that the supersoul? Maybe. Krishna's our friend. And we get mental. We say, look outside. Oh, it's such a sunny day. No, it's not going to rain. And then later on, oh, that was my friend, the super soul. Huh? Devotees, if we see these videos that Siddhanta Prabhu made of devotees reminiscing about Prabhupada, in many of those devotees, they are explaining how it seemed that Prabhupada could read my mind. But actually, Prabhupada was not a mind reader, but he was in touch with the super soul. And so Krishna would tell him what to say. In fact, there was one conversation Prabhupada was having with some professor. And in that conversation, Prabhupada was saying that Krishna tells me what to say. And one of Prabhupada's leaders who was with him at the time tried to correct Prabhupada and said, what Prabhupada means is Krishna gives him the intelligence what to say. And Prabhupada said, no, Krishna tells me what to say. Huh? So, and Prabhupada, taking dictation from the Lord in our heart, would say like that. We have the example, another one of these nice stories is from, who was the leader in Bombay for so long? Giriraj Maharaj. Giriraj Maharaj tells a story about when he was, first time he met Prabhupada. And he had a car at the time, so he drove the devotees to this engagement, and he listened to Prabhupada's lecture, and then Prabhupada took questions, and so he asked Prabhupada a question. I don't remember what the question is, but it's not so important. But the answer is that Prabhupada said, that depends on whether you want to try to be God or whether you want to serve God. And immediately that struck Giriraj, because on his bathroom mirror he had a little sticker there that said, that he would see every morning when he woke up, you are God. And so Prabhupada was speaking directly to him. Giriraj said, immediately when Prabhupada said that, I could understand, this is my spiritual master. He's speaking directly to me. How? Through the Lord in the heart, through the agency of the super soul. This bona fide spiritual master acting as the via medium to the super soul. So we also want to come to this condition where we can hear the Lord in the heart directly and then follow his instruction. So that's the process. Bring the mind under control. And then the super soul is reached. But then we have another challenge. Once we reach the super soul, Krishna is giving us instruction. Now we get to surrender. We still have free will. The Lord in the heart may be giving us instruction, and it's still up to us whether we will follow or not. Just like in the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, after he's spoken of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, he says, so deliberate on this fully and decide what you want to do. So Krishna doesn't control us. He's not demanding anything from us. We have the free will. We decide, will we follow or will we not? If we have the mind under control, at least we're not going to be pushed around by our worst enemy or by our senses, but then we still have to surrender to Krishna. So this instruction is given by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita, 1872, I think. Krishna says, in all activities, just depend upon me and work always under my instruction. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. So here, the Lord is instructing us to actually take direction from the Lord in the heart. In all activities, just depend upon me and act always under my instruction. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. Conscious of me how? As a super soul. Conscious of the Lord in the heart. This is otherwise called Krishna consciousness. Being conscious of Krishna. And then in the next sloka, the Lord explains what happens if we do or if we don't. If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. So, that's the situation. If we can hear the Lord in the heart and surrender to Him, we'll pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by the grace of the Lord. So we want to come to that position. We want to come to that stage. Being able to be conscious of the consciousness. See who's speaking. Who's got the microphone? What are they saying? Is it about sense gratification? Should I do it or not? Is it the intelligence speaking? Or is it the purified intelligence speaking? Another anecdote in that regard. There are some nice people in America. They feel sorry for all the people that are in prison and they want to help them out. So they arranged a education program. They figured that all these poor people are in prison because they just didn't get an even break in life. Things just didn't go their way. So let's give them some education. So they arranged for a computer training for computer skills, so that then when they got out of prison, they could get a job and become respectable members of the society, right? But what happened, of course, because they didn't have purified intelligence, when they got out of prison, they simply did computer crime. Right? The consciousness is polluted, and you'll use your polluted intelligence for doing stupid things. So we have to purify the intelligence. We have to purify the mind. And we have our process for this is very powerful, sadhana bhakti. And our endeavor must be to bring the mind under control, to hear the Supersoul, to surrender to Him. Then we can pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by His grace. So we'll stop there for discussion.